Yo, what's going on, guys? And today I want to talk about what the contract extension for Brandon Clarke truly means for the Grizzlies, and I think it's them just locking up their core. And Brandon Clarke's a guy who can play power forward and center, but I see him as long term being either their, you know, a high level, six man type guy for them in the front court, or developing into, potentially a guy who could be a spot starter and at the center position. Now I want to hear your thoughts because I just think the future front court Santi Aldama and Jaren Jackson Jr. with Brandon Clarke being rotated in there once they move on from Steven Adams. But with that being said, if you look at the current, front court, it's Jaren Jackson Jr. when he's healthy in a few months. But starting lineup, it's probably going to be Santi Aldama and Steven Adams. That way they can still space the floor because Brandon Clarke and Xavier Tillman aren't guys who shoot. And then at power forward, you still have Jake LaRavia, David Roddy, and Kenny Lofton Jr. on a two-way who can also play power forward, but guys who can play power forward and center are primarily, in theory, the younger guys could, but that's more down the road. I think the front court is with Brandon Clarke, is they're expecting Brandon Clarke with this deal. If you guys didn't know, it is a 4-year, $52 million deal, which basically, if you break it down, I think, what is that? I'm so bad at math. What is it? $26 million every 2 years. So it's like 13 a year. So it's not a bad deal. $13 million a year. That's more of, off the bench type numbers they're paying him. And this is something that we've seen. They've aggressively re-signed their players at a rapid rate. They've gone Dillon Brooks, Jaren Jackson Jr., Ja Morant, all deals before their rookie contracts expired. They also signed Steven Adams and John Konchar. And when I say moving on from Steven Adams, maybe down the road they'll trade him when they feel like it's time. But for his career, Clarke's a guy for 22 minutes a night, 11 rebounds, not 11 rebounds, 11.6 rebounds, and about a block a game. And he's expected to play a bigger role, but I do believe Aldama will be the starter until Jaren Jackson Jr. returns because of the floor spacing, with Brandon Clarke kind of playing that six-man role, with Tyus Jones being the primary guard. Brandon Clarke and Tyus Jones being the two first guys off the bench, this season. And then you have, John Konchar and Zaire Williams. And Xavier Tillman has faded a little bit in the background, and he could be someone that they let walk. But I do believe that right now, when fully healthy, the four guys who will be in the rotation for the front court consistently will be Steven Adams, Jaren Jackson Jr., Santi Aldama, and Brandon Clarke. And that's the future of that rotation. And then when they do, probably in 2-3 years, move on from Steven Adams when they feel like that is appropriate, because the money that they gave Steven Adams, like, not a bad deal whatsoever, and he was deserving of it. He's one of the most consistent centers in the league, and he's only 29, but you expect in 2-3 years, like, he's got 12.6 next year and 12.6 the following year. So you expect, either they let him walk when that contract expires, or in this, 2024, they trade him and when he enters the final year of that deal. And when that happens, you would expect the rotation of Santi Aldama, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clarke to be more solidified. And then either that they extend Xavier Tillman, or David Roddy, Kenneth Lofton / Jake LaRavia, one of, or all three, or two of, whatever combination, will eventually, inherit that position and take over the success. And I think that's something just to think about, that this is definitely a team that they will. I just, I really like what they're doing there. And when Brandon Clarke, he's just, if he does become a starter, it's at the center position. But I think with Santi Aldama, they're trying to do Jaren Jackson Jr. and Santi be the future starting lineup at the front court, with Brandon Clarke kind of being, like I said, co-six man with Tyus Jones being the six man for the point guard and shooting spot for, Ja Morant and Desmond Bane, whatever lineup, primarily Ja Morant. And then you have for the front court Brandon Clarke being the primary backup there for Santi, Jaren Jackson Jr. / Steven Adams till they move on. And I just think that's probably what they're going for. And I do think he's a fun guy to watch, and a guy that has just, gotten better all the time, and he's a good player. Okay, I think he's a guy that he I mean, obviously, we would love to see him have a jump shot, but I think even without a jump shot, he's a consistent guy who's going to come in, score efficiently, and play good basketball. And that's just because he's a good basketball player and a guy that, is hyper aware of what needs to be done to, for them to have the success that they need to have to win a championship. And bringing him on like a deal that's only $13 million a year is just smart, because it allows he knows he's not probably going to be a starter. He's more of a spot starter and a bench guy, a really solid rotational player, a key cog in the machine. Plus, it's also a tradable contract that if God forbid that happens, but if he does fall off a cliff in terms of I guess you could say efficiency or playing style, or if he stagnates in development, it's definitely a contract that they can move on. I don't think Brandon Clarke will. I think the only thing one thing that could upset him is if he does never develop a jumper, but I don't think it'll hold him back as long as he can stay consistent at defense and having an all-around game without a jump shot and maybe becoming a better passer. But besides that, I don't think that's something to be concerned about, and I think it's the least of the worries. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts. What do you guys think of all this? But peace out. I love y'all.